Hi, I'm Kara Williams of Inner Alchemy Astrology, and I would like to talk to you today about inner child work. It's something I have quite a bit of experience with, so I would like to share some of my techniques and some of the concepts involved. Now, our inner child, you might have a vague idea of what that is, but the inner child is an aspect of ourselves that is still childlike, but often acts out in ways that maybe cause trouble in our lives. The inner child can cause us to have temper tantrums, to be unable to regulate our emotions, to lash out at people, and all sorts of usually emotional behaviors, or also obsessive and addictive behaviors. Now, we shouldn't view the inner child as a problem, because that is kind of the origin of why our inner child is acting up. Our inner child is the part of us that maybe didn't receive parenting the way that could have benefited us more. We could have been abused, we could have been neglected, we could have not received guidance. There's many possibilities of what could have happened to us in our childhood to cause us to sort of banish and reject our inner child. Now in Jung refers to the shadow as the aspect of ourselves that we reject and deny. And that aspect becomes the shadow. Because it's something about ourselves that we don't like. It's often we're ashamed of this part of ourselves. It's some aspect of us that we don't want anyone else to see and that we often don't want to see ourselves. So it gets banished to the subconscious. And when something is banished to the subconscious, it gains more power. Anything that we deny, especially about ourselves and repress, simply grows and it becomes the monsters in our dreams, the scary figures, the demons, the murderers, the pursuers, all of these things, they become the shadow. Now, what is the relationship between the inner child and the shadow? It's quite intertwined. Now, something so innocent as a child who is neglected or abused can turn into an adult monster. Literally, people who have personality disorders such as narcissistic personality disorder, sociopathy, etc., these things can be caused by, essentially, not always, but a bad childhood, a traumatic childhood, abuse, neglect, and so on. Now, it doesn't always happen that way, and just because you have a damaged or wounded inner child, it can come out in so many ways in terms of codependency, anxious attachment, avoidant attachment, and so on. Addictive behaviors. Some of the things that you should think about before you start to do any energy work or visualization work around your inner child is just to reflect back on your personal history, and some things will probably stand out. Some things that were wounding, some events, some family dynamics, and so on. It could be in school, bullying. It almost always, your inner child will be wounded by something that happened in your childhood, from when you were in the womb all the way up until you were a teenager. And what happens is later on, when you get triggered by something that happens in your adulthood, you're actually responding to trauma from your childhood. So we have to look back. We have to look back and back and back and see where these things originate from. And it can seem like something very small. Sometimes people who go through extreme trauma don't come out of it with PTSD or, personality disorders or trauma or anything. And other people, they might be more sensitive. They experience what some people might think is no big deal, and they experience it very deeply and profoundly and as a big trauma. So don't judge yourself. Judging yourself is part of what causes you to need to do this kind of shadow work. So you need to apply a lot of self-love. You need to apply a lot of compassion. And that means training your brain, watching your thoughts, mindfulness. So do some journaling and write down what are my core wounds. What were the elements from my childhood that can be affecting me later on, and just accept yourself. If you think it's something that you shouldn't still be bothered by, it's just that you haven't resolved it in the moment. And now that you're an adult, you can take care of yourself. It's called reparenting. You're going to do the parenting that maybe your parents couldn't do for you, or maybe the additional parenting that you need. So journal that stuff. And also another thing is to journal about what aspects of yourself do you reject. You might deny the fact that, say, you're addicted to your cell phone. It's very common these days. And then where does that come from? You know, you might be like, why am I so addicted to this stupid thing? This is one of my personal issues, so that's why I'm using it as an example. And, you know, like, I feel kind of lame and stupid for being addicted to looking at the internet and checking social media and all of this stuff when it doesn't actually provide any sustenance and it actually distracts me from doing the things that I need to be doing. So I've been analyzing that a lot and trying to change the behaviors and so on. And then I might reject that about myself because I don't want to be a kind of person who needs the validation from the internet or who is being distracted all the time and is, you know, wasting my time. So sometimes I would deny that I really spend that much time, and then I add screen time, and then I really see how much time I spend on the internet, and you can't really deny it anymore. So you have to bring these things to light. And then with some analysis, I realized that I was rejecting the part of myself that needs others for validation, you know? And then when you look back, you're like, well, when did I not receive validation and love? And then it's like back in your childhood, back in, you know, when a parent didn't accept you or didn't love you in the way that, you know, every child needs. So these things can have lasting, long effects. And let's see. So gather a photo of yourself as a child, especially a time prior to when a trauma occurred, if possible, and a time when you feel like you need that compassion. Like when you needed that attention, that love, that compassion, maybe you didn't receive it. So gather up a couple of photos, have them nearby when you're journaling, and then you can write a letter to your inner child. You can communicate with him or her in a dialogue. I would recommend starting it out with a letter. You imagine that you're speaking with your inner child. What would you want them to know? How would you want them to feel? You can engage with them in the beginning as if it's someone that you don't know, a child that you don't know. You can introduce yourself and ask them what's on their mind, make them feel comfortable, and then imagine the response. This is like a creative writing exercise. Imagine how this child would respond back to you. And another thing you can do is try to think about what things you liked as a child. Say you liked to color, or say you liked ponies. You can somehow find ways to re-engage those aspects of yourself, because we all need to play, and you don't have to play just by doing the things that you like doing as a child, but try to find a way to connect to things that you enjoyed. Maybe you like to make collages or draw, and find an outlet for that in your life so that you don't, you know, deny that child aspect of yourself. My therapist had me draw a picture of my father with my left hand because it engages the subconscious brain, and then to write a letter, an exchange back and forth about what I felt in the dialogue that I had with my inner child. I have done a few energy work and creative visualization exercises that have been really powerful for me. And this is slightly more advanced. You should be a little bit familiar with creative visualization and energy work, but it's not necessary. What you will have to do is enter a peaceful space. You can turn off your phone, make sure there'll be no distractions, and try to meditate for a few minutes. And then close your eyes, of course, and visualize a place where you as a child felt safe and comfortable. And if there was no place like that, imagine a place where you would have, like a dream place, completely safe. And if you can't see it, don't worry. We don't all have these abilities, and it is something that can get stretched and grow with time. So just know it's there, just picture it in your mind as best you can. And when you are safe and you're feeling comfortable there, imagine your inner child. Visualize your inner child in a space, like under a tree, on a swing, and so on. And then approach them carefully, introduce yourself. You can introduce yourself as the older version of them, or as a parental figure or a friend, whatever you feel comfortable with, and make their acquaintance. Talk to them ask them how they're doing, you know? Ask them how they're feeling. If there's some particular issue that you're having in your life that you want to discuss, that you think might be triggered by the inner child, you can discuss it with them, but try to use terms that as if you were speaking to an actual child. Make sure it's child appropriate, make sure you're not scaring them, make sure that you actually treat them maybe how you would have liked to be treated when you were a child. Now, if you like this video, I'm going to make an MP3, a guided meditation, where we can go more deeply into this process. So you can look for that on my website, inneralchemia.ca. It's linked in my channel page. And if you like this video, be sure to subscribe to my channel and like the video. It would help me a lot. My channel is brand new. So thank you so much.